Morning. Hello. Good morning and welcome to tea time. I hope you're doing wonderfully. What's going on, my people? I am live on both Instagram and YouTube. And this morning is definitely going to be an exercise in ease. Yes, that's what this is going to be. This is going to be an exercise in ease. I am definitely feeling the ripple effects of being in a mode of travel for several weeks now. And I've been talking about it, but I'm just letting y'all know from the mere fact that, you know, the energy I have today is one that is actually probably the reason for the topic, because I just feel that sometimes we forget to pay attention to the parts of us that just need rest, and how you say, we need to take the edge off our own lives because we are so pumped up, so riled up, so always on, always going, always feeling like if life is not moving at our pace. And this is, of course, a self proclaimed pace. It's not necessarily a pace that is healthy or is required. But many of us out there, especially those of us that are high performers, this week I spent a lot of time with some high performing women because, yes, 2 days ago was Girls in ICT Day, and I had a speaking event, and I was also at a conference in Grenada before that, and I was around a lot of women, a lot of high performing, high profile, top of government or top of their organization, like CEOs and COO and minister this and director that, like a lot of women who are just always on. And similarly, I'm also around a lot of men who are always on, who are they're in their own right, high performers in their own right, doing very well, very successful. And I tend to fall into that category of always on. And so this morning, as I heard my alarm go off, and I was like, oh, I have tea time. And can I tell you, I love coming for tea time, like tea time is my jam. You guys know this. Like me showing up here, this is my jam. But when the thought was like, oh, tea time, normally I'd be like springing out of bed. And let me tell you now, it's like I had to open this lid, then open this other lid. It was that kind of morning. But it got me thinking about the way that we create suffering for ourselves by trying to make life happen exactly like we think it should, even if it is not required. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the way that we sometimes force life, you know, instead of allowing life to flow. And I'm very guilty of this. Guilty, meaning I am definitely one of those persons that tends to get into, or used to a lot more. It was almost like a habit where I'm literally like forcing life to happen on my terms because I feel that that is what success looks like. I've just observed so many people around me, especially living in North America for most of my life. I've just seen so many people all around me push the square peg into the round hole, um, ignore the signals that are saying this is an opportunity for you to learn, or maybe you need to just chill, um, allow life to do what it's doing. I just did not look for those signals a lot. And I really feel that had I paid closer attention to those signals, that I would have been I would experience a lot less suffering in my life. And I'm going to define for you what I mean by suffering in a little while. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. Today, we're going to be talking about surrendering instead of suffering. And it shows up in every area of our life. Um, so I have my tea. I'm definitely going to need my tea this morning, guys. I'm going to need some grace from y'all as I take my time to unfold this conversation and just some of the thoughts that I'm having. And I would love to hear, even before I start to actually share just the concept that I want us to talk about this through. I would love for you to even drop a note or a wave or something where you may feel that in your life you are putting yourself through suffering because you're trying to force a situation to happen and it's just not happening. You're legitimately like trying to force something to take place and it's not taking place. And you've convinced yourself that all you have to do is work harder, push more, get other people to do what you want them to do, to listen to you, to make your point, to get people to agree. Yeah, if you have any of that kind of stuff happening in your life, let me know. Drop a note and let me know if you're dealing with that. So we're talking about surrendering instead of suffering, allowing life to unfold and letting go and accepting some of the situations that you're in. Situations, people, things. Yeah. So for me, I have a card in my deck that actually speaks to this. And I went ahead and actually looked through my deck because you guys know I usually shuffle the deck and then allow a card to just come forward. But I actually saw this card when I had the thought this morning that I was going to talk about this. So the card, I'm shuffling even though the card is right here. The card for today is I surrender. I surrender. That's the card for today. And this card says, the affirmation says, I trust the universe fully and completely with all areas of my life. Let go, let God. I trust the universe fully and completely with all areas of my life. Let go, let God. And the reason why I definitely wanted to use this card this morning was for a couple of reasons. One, I want to talk about affirmation first because I feel that there are so many different conversations going on right now about who people serve and who everybody's higher being is, and everybody has some people have very strong beliefs about that. But what I want persons to pay attention to is less about the function of what is happening externally. And I will say this regardless of what your concept of God is. What I want to focus on is actually the letting go part and the context of allowing life to unfold, because I think that's where most of you struggle, is allowing life to unfold. Most of you struggle with feeling like in order for life to change, you have to be controlling and figuring out every little piece of life. And what I know for sure is that the more I think I'm in control, the more life shows me that I'm not. And so what my job is to actually, first of all, figure out what my job is. Can somebody say amen to that? Like, sometimes you really are confronted with, am I just supposed to just leave this alone? I know to figure this out. And what I will say to that is yes and no. If you go back and watch my discipline and decisions tea time, I did it a few weeks ago. There are times where you just have to make a decision, and sometimes you make the decision and then let go, because you have to choose. You're at an inflection point in your life where you have to make a choice, and then you are letting go after having made that choice, right? Because there is no wrong choice. A choice is just a choice. Okay. The part about it where we suffer is that we think we have to know how it's going to turn out. And we think we have to know all the steps. We have to know how to navigate all the steps when we are in a space of unknown and uncertainty. And when life is showing up and showing us that people and things and circumstances are not always going to be looking like it's on your side. Listen, man. I'm in a situation right now where I'm working with some people, and it's almost like I get signals constantly that even though I may be operating from a place of power, and even though I may be, like very knowledgeable and doing all the things, I will literally in 1 week say, okay, I see the idea that you've presented, I understand it, but this is what I want to change. This is what is missing. And you will sit and I will explain what's missing. Now, when we meet again, just make sure that the parts that I say that you really need to incorporate and you need to include are showing up. Next week, it's like a doubling down on their way. It's a doubling down on all the things that I've said need to shift. And then my ideas are kind of like stuck on the side, like sticky notes, and I've been doing this process with this particular group of people for a few weeks now. Yeah. And so this morning, as I was thinking about this topic and thinking about examples in my own life where I'm not letting go, I was like, okay, well, what is the gap? What is it that you're not doing? And then I realized what I was actually doing is I was actually suffering. I am in my head, wake up first thing in the morning, and I'm thinking about these people. I'm not thinking about my joy. I'm not thinking about how I want to start my day. I'm not thinking about just, the amazing things that are available to me for this weekend. No, I'm thinking about the same people that are in my head, driving me crazy. And I am the one that is suffering. I'm pretty sure they're over there enjoying themselves and their own lives, right? So suffering often, it doesn't come from the circumstance itself, but it comes from the resistance to the circumstance. Okay? So when we fight the reality of what's happening around us, we are actually giving power to our struggles. And what happens when you give power to your struggles is that they grow stronger. Because somehow we feel that by trying to control what's happening, it's almost like you're squeezing the life out of a situation, and it's just not doing what you want it to do. And ultimately, what that is saying to you is you don't need to fight with it, because all you're doing is like you're transferring the power that you feel that you're using to actually shift a thing. Instead, that power is being translated into, I'm actually making my struggles more. Surrender, on the other hand, is not about giving up or losing, which is what a lot of persons, including myself, think. So you may feel that if you allow something to unfold, that you are actually giving up or that you are losing to the other person. And I'm using quoting other person because what I realize is that when I think about where I tend to suffer the most, it tends to be when it's in relationship with other people, whether it's people at work, my kids, my love partner, my family. You know, that's when suffering typically tends to show up, and where I don't want to surrender because I want to have the outcome that I desire. And it doesn't mean that I can't get to the outcome. It just means that I am putting myself through suffering, and you may be doing the same thing. You may be in a situation with a coworker like me who have some consultants that I'm dealing with that I'm battling against. It's like this power struggle. I really feel like, you know, that's what is happening. It's like you're in this power struggle, and you may not see it as a power struggle, but ultimately that's what it is, because you feel like if you give up or stop the fight, that you are losing. And it's not about that. Surrender is really about accepting the present moment for what it is, without trying to control or change it, or without trying to know how to do that. I think that's probably part of where I spend a lot of my time. I spend a lot of my time with the how. How does this work? How do I make this happen? How do I? And sometimes there's no how for you to figure out in the immediate moment, because from the mere fact that you are struggling with the how, it means that you are not yet the person that knows that how. Let me know if you're picking up what I'm putting down. When you are in a problem and you are faced with circumstances that are outside of your control, people, places, or things, and you are caught in a cycle of thought that probably end up in arguments, back and forth arguments, or end up in a feelings of disappointment, anger, upset. And you are there in your mind, hackling yourself about figuring this out. It is an indication to you that there is more work that has to take place within you to have an immediate response, to have an immediate, this is how I'm going to handle this. And so in that moment, you may need to make a decision, and you don't know how the decision is going to turn out. But the suffering takes place when you get stuck with trying to figure out the how, and you get stuck in the whole heap of arguing, and you get stuck in the whole heap of pain, because you're there battling with what is very present right now. And I know you're thinking, well, okay, Stacey, if I'm not battling with what is present right now, then what am I doing? What you're doing instead is first recognizing that, okay, I'm in this cycle where I'm trying to figure out. And this is where you shift from that cycle of trying to figure out into a letting go. And it is the first step in surrender. It is the first step in surrender. The first step in surrender is seeing yourself in the torture, seeing that you are the only person that is in the struggle. Or maybe it's not just you're alone in the struggle, you know. Because I can tell you, in my back and forthing with these people, I can see where when they come back to me and they're presenting me the exact same thing, or an expanded version of the exact same thing we talked about last week, I can see it in their face that, oh my God, this is not what she wants. And I'm still telling her exactly what she doesn't want. So they have their own suffering that they're dealing with, but you can't be responsible for anybody else's suffering. The only suffering that you can navigate is your own. And so what we tend to do is we tend to suffer in our own suffering, and we tend to suffer in everybody else's suffering because we feel responsible. So when you recognize that you're in that cycle, first thing to do is to let go. Letting go is an essential part of the surrender process. It is the first part. When you recognize, well, I'll say awareness is the first part, and then awareness leads you into the opportunity to let go. It involves releasing this tight grip of expectations from other people, of outcomes. It involves releasing control. So you're letting go of expectation, you're letting go of the outcomes because you can't control them, and you're letting go of the desire to control and to maintain that control. So when you let go in that moment, you're creating space for your own sanity, first of all. Like, you ever been in upset and you just decide, say, yeah, this now work. This now work for me. And the moment that you do that, it's like you automatically feel this grand release just run through your body. Sometimes it makes you cry because it's like your soul has been freed from suffering. It's like you're just tired and you finally acknowledge, say you're tired, and everything just pour out and tears flow. For women, tears may flow. Some guys will cry also. Some women, will cry. I cry sometimes. Sometimes I cry too much. But yeah, that happens to me when I decide that I'm going to just surrender a thing and allow life to unfold. Yeah. There are a lot of stories that we have been programmed with over time, that things require an immediate fix from us. We've been told, we tell ourselves stories, our parents have told us stories, our teachers have told us stories. I mean, I know teachers still beat kids over the head for learning a particular way, even when the child can't learn that way, and it puts the kids into a lot of suffering. Our spouses, our mothers, fathers, you just get beat over your head about a way that you have to be and about solving and fixing and doing. And then you just end up in a whole heap of suffering, not knowing how to listen to your intuition, not knowing how to listen to yourself and to let go of expectations and outcomes when you are obviously in a place that it's not working, right? So letting go is making space for your sanity first and foremost, letting in opportunities, letting, they talk about when a door closes, a window will open. If you keep jamming yourself into the door, then you're not gonna see the window. So the work is really mind work and not so much doing work, not so much fussing and arguing work, not so much speaking work like that, like where you're going back and forth. It's really more spending time with yourself and just allowing things to just be. Now, you may kind of, going back to what we were saying about, if you're in the midst of something and you have to make a decision, like there's something happening that is creating suffering for you in that moment, and you need to decide, and you make a decision. You can't oscillate over whether the decision is the right one or not, because we're going to do the best we can with what we have at all times. I really believe that. Right? I really believe that. So, to answer a question that came up earlier, how do you know when to let it flow, let life happen, versus when to push back, fight, and put up resistance? So I think that's probably the distinction is, and maybe the Bob Marley movie is a good example of this. It's just the how of the resistance, right? It's the how of the resistance and where that's coming from. So I believe that you are always in a space of letting life flow. So that when, for me, that when is all the time. Now, when life is in flow, it does not mean that you do not stand in your power. It does not mean that you do not stand up for yourself, right? When you think about the One Love movie, which I don't know why this popped into my mind, but okay, we're going to run with it. When you think about the One Love movie, there were times when you would see Bob Marley standing, and there was another time where he did not, right? When he got shot because they were going to get ready to do this concert. He decided to take a stand at that time, and I didn't sense a pushback or a resistance in how he was showing up. I saw him accepting what was happening and deciding to move forward. He made a decision to move forward with his intention to speak of peace. So he never fight the gunman when the gunman come in. No, right? He got shot, and his pushback or his fight was in moving forward with the concert, that first concert, right? And then it got really hot. And so what Flo looked like at that moment was him going to London. And in going to London, he was surrendering to the situation, because he knew that if he had stayed in that situation and decided, say, yeah, I'm gonna go and sing, and I'm gonna go and have one bag concert, and I'm gonna go and do whatever else, he may have died. And in that instance, he was not losing or giving up. He was choosing to surrender to the moment that he was experiencing and step away so that he could create space for himself. And in creating that space by going to London, he was able to tap into a new type of music that essentially, like the rocket of success that took off. And then there came a time where he could return to the fight, to the struggle, right? And create a greater impact, create greater change. So I hope that answers your question, Miss Fendi. I hope that answers your question. But that's what I'm saying, is that sometimes, we think about not surrendering as fighting or as resistance. Putting up a resistance. We think about it like that. But what is true is that resistance or fighting or pushing back does not have to take on a fight mentality. And it's not because I don't get into arguments. I get into arguments. I think I came on a couple weeks ago and actually talked to you guys about how I showed up in that meeting. Remember, I came on and I was telling you guys that I was in this meeting with these consultants, and they were showing something that I was completely not in agreement with. And even though I was saying it, it's like they kept going, and one of the persons was doing the mansplaining thing, and it was really annoying me. And I was like, and I had to apologize after. It's not because I don't get into fights. I get into fights. Sometimes I'll have the fight work out in my head. Like, look at me. I have the fight work out in my head how I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna take it to them. But it doesn't serve me, because what I end up in is I end up in suffering just thinking about it. I end up in suffering just thinking about all the ways that I'm going to argue my point and to push back and to show them that I know what I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, it just does not serve me. It does not serve me. I have been able to force and push things along in my life. And as a matter of fact, I will say that even a lot of the promotions and the accolades that I've gotten in my life have come from times where I have forced and pushed things forward. But what is happening to me now is that I'm realizing that I could have gotten us the same result and just handled myself differently. Still be strong, still be powerful, still exude presence, but allow people's reactions and responses to flow through me, versus feeling like I have to be a big bad bulldozer and push my way through. It's not necessary. Now, let's talk about when you're in fight or flight mode and it's not like an anxiety situation. So there are times when you are actually in a fight, like a physical altercation. You're getting yourself beat up, like you're getting your ass whooped. Well, yeah, sure, fight back in those situations. You are approached by a saber-toothed tiger or a lion or something. Yeah, you need to, if you're under attack. Okay, yeah, fight. That's what I mean. But a lot of times what tends to happen as humans now in today's world, 2024, is that We are not in a fight for our life situation all the time. It is really perceived. So let's look at a woman in a relationship that's abusive, right? And her husband or partner is beating her. Then clearly that is a fight situation. But guess what happens some of the time? What happens a lot of the time is that the woman stays in the situation even when he's not physically beating her, right? So, okay, if he's beating you, maybe you're fighting back, you're defending yourself, maybe you're arguing, etc. When he's not beating you, you are making a decision in that moment to either accept and let go of this relationship that is not healthy and therefore step away, right? Or you're going to stay in the suffering because you want this person, you want this man, you want him to be this man that you think he can be. And so in that instance, you are actually not surrendering and accepting that this person needs help and support. And so you are going to let go of the relationship because it does not serve you. You are choosing to suffer and remain in a situation that does not serve you in the current dispensation because you have made up in your mind that this is what you want. So that's kind of flipping the script a little bit. For those of us now who aren't in an immediately threatening situation, so you have issues with people who are not physically abusing you, right? But you have circumstances where you feel like you're under attack, you feel like you're having pressure in your life, and you decide that you're going to fight. You're going to make them know, and you leave the situation, and all you can do is talk about the situation. All you can do is talk about the person. All you can do is talk about and complain and catastrophize every single thing that comes across your desk. You're waking up in the morning and that's all you think. That's not acceptance. That is you getting into a cycle of expectations of a person, situation, or thing that they clearly cannot meet. And so you are not actually helping yourself. Sometimes you can't recognize when you're in this cycle. And so one of the things I recommend that you do is to journal, right? Because what I realize with myself is when I look back through my journal, I can see where I literally write down, I feel like I'm suffering. I feel like I'm struggling. I'm so stressed. When I look back at those journal entries, and it's maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year later, and I realize how much stress I put myself under while these other people out there doing all of them things. At that point in time, it's like, wow, and look how much time has passed and I'm still here. Some of the things I didn't even make a decision about. I just decided I'm not deciding. That's the decision. I'm not deciding. I just made sure I found my way to what made me happy. Now, I'm going to say to you guys that not everybody is going to agree with the path that you choose to take. Not everybody's going to agree with it, but it's your path. It's your life. And a lot of times we actually put ourselves through suffering because we take on the responsibility of what everybody else is going to think about the decisions that we're making. I see you picking up what I'm putting down. And you have to start to look at your life and see where you are putting up resistance. Where is that happening? Where in your life are you putting up resistance? And you can know. You can know where you're putting up resistance because you feel it. You feel the resistance within you. You feel that you are not letting go of this expectation you have of this person. Let me tell you something, man. You see, in relationships, especially those relationships that are high stakes, I like to talk about the high stakes relationships. High stakes relationships at work, people that you work with, right? Well, and sometimes it's your boss, sometimes it's people that report to you. Relationships with a love partner, high stakes. High stakes. Relationships with your children. Sometimes you have really, really close friends that you've been in relationship with for a long time. Those relationships, those are the ones that we endure and experience the most suffering. the most suffering, because we have in our head expectations of this other person. I saw this amazing video. I'm not called amazing, but I love Jay Shetty. I love Jay Shetty, right? And um, I saw a post. He was in an interview. He was doing an interview with this very popular, I think he's a British actor or comedian. And he asked him, why do most romantic relationships fail? And he told this story that he had read in a book about people and their different backgrounds, where they come from. And he was saying that, you know, as an individual, you grow up with all of this context. It's like you're growing up with the context that you get from your parents, from your teachers, everybody, right? You grow up in your household from a little kid, baby, you know, you're growing up. And as you're growing up, you're building your own house, right? So it's like you're building the house, and I will call this the house of your mind. This is the construct of your personality and your mind and the way your brain works and the way that you express yourself in life, right? So as you're growing up and you have all these inputs from all these different people, you are building this house. And the bricks that you're using to build the house have all kind of holes and gaps and cracks, because you're getting information from your family, you're getting information from your parents, you're getting information from your teachers, your pastors, your priests, whoever, right? So you're doing all of that growing, and you're building using the information that you get. So now you have this beautiful house that you've built when you're an adult, right? You built this beautiful house, and it has all these bricks that you've collected or created based on the information that you get from everybody else. And these bricks have holes and gaps, and because nobody that you're getting information from is perfect. They are dealing with their own suffering. So you're intaking all of this, you're putting together your life construct, which is this beautiful house, and then you meet somebody. Now, keep in mind that when the person that you meet, whether the person you meet them at work and you have to work with them, or the person you meet on a date and you're choosing to love them, you meet this person, or you meet this person, and they are doing the same thing in their own world. They're building their same construct of life. They have their own beautiful brick house with its gaps and its holes and its flaws in it. And then we are basically saying to that person, hey, come over here to my beautiful house. It is perfect. I have built it to perfection based on all the wonderful things that I've been taught. And they are doing the same thing with you. Now, I'll take it another step further. Sometimes when you meet these people, they are struggling with their bricks. So you have built your perfect brick house with all its holes and cracks and gaps, and you believe in your brick house, and you're inviting them to come over to yours. And they're like, I don't really trust that I can come over to your house now, because my brick house are fall apart. So if me can't fix my brick house, how may I come live in your brick house? And the translation there, guys, is basically that we all have our own individual constructs that we come into this life experience with. All of us do. And what ends up happening as a result of that is, when we engage with people, we have an expectation that they're going to be engaging with us from our construct, from our life, from our values, the set of values that we have built up, that we believe in, that we think are amazing. It's just like, so in the Bible, it talks about being unequally yoked, but it wasn't talking about being, Christian and Christian, or Buddhist and Buddhist. That's not what it was talking about. It was talking about having the same base set of values. So if your belief system is that, well, I really value family time, and I really value, cleanliness, and I really value raising children, and then you meet a man or a woman who has built their own construct of values that equals, oh, I really think that people should be loners. I don't think this family thing works, because maybe they're coming from a broken home, and that doesn't value that. Oh, I don't believe that, we need to be stressed out about cleanliness because that's not what my values were, right? Or I don't think we need to really worry about kids. I don't necessarily feel that we need to have children because that's their construct. That's their brick house that they have built, and they strongly believe in it or they don't. And now you have set expectations based on your value set. And when you don't see that your value set or your house is being honored, it creates a great deal of suffering for you, because you are living in the expectation that these other people are going to serve you at your level of values, at your level of expectation. And the suffering in those moments, it's really unbearable sometimes. And even worse, sometimes we don't even recognize that we are in that suffering. So hopefully today you will get a sense of what that suffering can look like. Right? You will get a sense of what that suffering can look like. And then you can go off now and actually think about where you're putting up resistance in your life. What are you resisting in your life? Where are you experiencing recycling thoughts because other people can't meet your expectations? How, when you have recognized that, how can you step into more ease? What is available to me to take my mind off of this and allow me to get into a space of more ease? It does not mean you ignore. It just means that you observe and you take a decision about how you're going to move forward. But it's better to take that decision when you are in a space of feel good. And if you keep examining what's happening that is creating the suffering, you're not going to be able to create space for yourself. All right. So I'm going to wrap up. Just a reminder, we're talking today about surrendering instead of suffering, and understanding that the distinction between suffering and surrender is that suffering comes from resisting the circumstances that we currently have in life, fighting reality, and giving power to the struggle that we are in, versus allowing space for ourselves to accept the present moment as it is without trying to control it, without trying to change it. Right? And we talked about the difference between when you're in an actual fight, as in the example of being in an abusive relationship, when you're in an actual fight versus a perceived state of discomfort, and how you can step forward or step closer to recognizing when you have expectations of others that really aren't serving you. Okay, guys? And just a reminder, the card for today is the I Surrender card. I trust the universe fully and completely with all areas of my life. Let go, let God. So thank you so much for joining on another tea time, guys. It was really my pleasure talking with you this morning. And I hope that you can escape the suffering, guys. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to really enjoy life and all its beautiful moments. And every time we need to step away from something that does not serve us, life gives us a clue. So just make sure that you're in self-awareness, paying attention, and being intentional about how you choose to live every day. Take care, everybody. Bye.